Hi, and welcome to Immigration Law Made Easy, where we provide valuable information and resources for immigrants who are navigating the complex U.S. immigration law system. I'm immigration lawyer Hillary Walsh. I'm an immigration lawyer dedicated to helping young people. I'm sort of still including myself in that bracket of people, but this podcast episode is especially for the young ladies and the young men here in the United States who don't have status. You might have DACA, or maybe DACA ended right when you became eligible for it, or it's been gone for a few years and you find yourself looking for other immigration options. And this episode is especially for the women who do not, and men who do not want to have to get married in order to get their papers. So today we're going to explore all the alternatives available to you if you're in the U.S. and you're not married to a U.S. citizen or a resident and you still want to get your papers. First, let's start by addressing the situation. Let's kind of like set the scene, lay the land, if you will. And I'm thinking about all of the young people who graduated from high school and then you've started college. Maybe you've hit bumps and bruises along the way, in the sense that you were able to apply for federal student loans because you didn't have a social security number, or you were charged out-of-state tuition in the state that you've grown up in and you've gone to high school in, and you went to middle school and you played all the sports. Like, that is your home state, but you weren't necessarily born there, except for that one detail, right? And now you're trying to go to college and you can't afford it because, well, let's face it, it's super expensive to go to college, even if you have status and you have a social security number and you have access to FAFSA. And now you're like, maybe you're going to get a scholarship. So you go out and you get the scholarships because that's what you do. You go out and you kick butt and you take names and you don't take no for an answer because that's who you are. But maybe now you're facing, it's time for me to start my first job. Or now it's time for me to move out of my parents' place and get a place of my own, but you don't have a social security number. And, maybe you can't get the job because you don't have a social security number. You don't have a work authorization document that allows you to work in the United States. And you're hearing all this conversation about Trump wanting to be reelected and deport 15 million people in the next 4 years. So you're not only scared, but you're frustrated. And everyone who you hear on TikTok and all these other places, they talk about immigration options only if you get married. And if I know you, you've probably had lots of guys, or maybe if you're one of the guys or one of the gals, you've had ladies offer to marry you who are citizens and say, I will help you out. But you know that that's, number one, not the right way of going about things, is just to get married for immigration papers, because it could haunt you for the rest of your life. But number two is, what is the point of having worked this hard in your life? You've worked your tail off to get this far and just have to marry someone. If this connects with you, this is a podcast for you, because I want to show you the different ways that can help you. And the one I want to really draw your attention to is something called a T visa. We're going to talk about that for the end of the podcast. We're going to go over some other options as well that may be helpful to you, but I really want you to listen in and think about a T visa. And I would love for you to call me or to send us a message. If you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to this on Apple and wherever you get your podcasts, please reach out to us at New Frontier Immigration Law, because you are who we specialize in helping. I love helping people who have complicated cases. And if you don't have a husband or a wife who's a U.S. citizen and you've been here without permission, you have a complicated case. But don't worry. I'm here on this podcast because I have hope for you. I do not want you to feel overwhelmed. I don't want you to feel uncertain about your future. I want you to know that there are paths available to you to secure your status in the U.S. So let's dive into what some of those options are. First, I want to talk about special immigrant juvenile status. In immigration law, we call this SIJS because that's kind of the acronym for it. So it's a little bit of a mouthful. SIJS was designed for children who've been abused, neglected, or abandoned by one or both of their parents. So if you meet this criteria, you may be eligible for SIJS. It's really important to know that SIJS is very much a state-dependent immigration rule. So what do I mean by that? Now, in Nevada, you can be 20 years old and get SIJS. You just can't be 21. Where in Arizona, if you're over 18, you can run into issues. So the age really depends, like depending on how old you are. It depends on where you live to see what the rules are for how old you can be and still qualify for SIJS. And the reason for this is because there's a state court component and then, of course, the federal immigration component. What does that mean in simple terms? If you have questions, you should call us at New Frontier Immigration Law, and we can try to help you figure out how old can you be and qualify for SIJS in California? How old can I be and get SIJS in Texas, for example, okay? To qualify, you need a court order from a state juvenile court declaring that you can't be reunified with your parents, that it's not in your best interest to return to your home country. And then once you have that, you apply for SIJS with the USCIS, the federal agency that adjudicates these petitions. So again, it's kind of a two-part process, and the first part is the state court part, and that's the part that dictates the age. Pretty much across every state, you have to be under the age of 21 in order to qualify. The second option I want to visit with you about is asylum. Now, if you've been here in the United States for a really long time, like you've grown up here, you've gone to high school, and you're kind of the person who I was describing at the beginning of the show, this may not be something that you really want to pursue. But let's say that you've been here for a really long time and things are happening in your home country, and you have a fear of being removed or returning to your home country. For example, if you grew up here and you're from Ukraine, I would absolutely urge you to apply for asylum. If things were going on and you live in and your family's from the Democratic Republic of Congo, I would absolutely encourage you to apply for asylum, even if you hadn't been there since you were very little. The same thing goes for if you were from Afghanistan or from even Iran. I would seriously consider talking to you about applying for asylum, even if you've been in the United States for a long time. And that's because the political situation in those countries has potentially become dangerous for you, having been here in the United States for a long time, especially if you're a woman going to any of those countries. I'm going to kind of stop there because the asylum process is pretty well researched and explained across internet platforms. And when I think about most of the people who, you would have been eligible for DACA, or maybe you already have DACA, it's probably not the most viable option for you. But I want you to know and kind of think through, am I free to return to my home country? If the answer is yes, in any way, shape, or form, don't be your own immigration lawyer. Instead, contact an immigration lawyer and ask them, I have this fear of being removed. I have this fear of returning to my home country. Do you think it's a good idea for me to apply for asylum? And let us, as the pros, really help guide you on whether asylum is a good option for you. The third option I want to talk to you about today is a U visa. U visas are incredible. They are absolutely amazing. And if you've been a victim of a certain type of crime, like domestic violence, sexual assault, even human trafficking, armed robbery, those types of crimes, a U visa would be a really great option for you, especially if you have cooperated with law enforcement in the investigation in any way of that crime. So what does that mean, helpful to the investigation? The short answer is, did you report it to the police? Did you call 911? Have you done anything that alerted law enforcement that this crime has happened? And if so, that could be the very ticket for helping you prove that you're entitled to or that you're eligible for a U visa. This visa provides temporary legal status and a work permit. And after 3 years, you may be able to apply for a green card. So it puts you on a path to residency here in the U.S. without leaving. And you'll notice no strings attached, no marriage, no family members petitioning for you. This is something you do on your own. Next is my beloved T visa. This is an amazing option for you ladies and gentlemen who don't want to get married. You don't want to have another family member holding this over your head and having to deal with all of this, but you want to get your status. It's similar to a U visa. The T visa is similar to a U visa, but it's available to victims of human trafficking. And you may be like, okay, you've had me until we got to human trafficking. And I want to urge you to think more openly about what human trafficking is. When our parents were younger, when our parents were our age, they did not think that verbal abuse was domestic violence. But we know in 2024 that verbal abuse is a form of domestic violence. And today in 2024, you and I are coming to an awakening of a new understanding of what human trafficking is and what it entails. And it entails so much more than what you see in the movies. This is not a Liam Neeson movie like Taken. And it's not just The Sound of Freedom, where we watch children being torn from their home country and put on a ship and brought to be sex slaves. This isn't just Jeffrey Epstein craziness. It is those things and so much more. Just like domestic violence is beating up your spouse, in addition to so many other things like verbal abuse or gaslighting or threatening, controlling, and coercive behavior. So I say that to say, to qualify, you have to show that you are a victim of a form of human trafficking, and that you're present in the U.S. because of it. And the way that we show that at New Frontier is often by showing that you're getting services like some of our free therapy that we offer here at New Frontier Foundation, the foundation that helps support so many human trafficking victims in the Valley, and that you have complied with reasonable requests from law enforcement. Basically, we report the crime to law enforcement through an email, and then if they have additional questions, we help support you in responding to those questions. The T visa, like a U visa, helps provide you with a path to a green card, and you do not have to leave to fix the country. That's our main options if you don't want to get married. Now, if you want a family member to petition for you, maybe you have a U.S. citizen son or daughter who can petition for you who's over the age of 21. A family-based immigration option might be great depending on how you first entered the country. And next, I also want to encourage you to think through employment-based options. Recently, the Biden administration sent out this kind of like vague announcement talking about how if you're the spouse of a U.S. citizen and you've been married to that spouse before June, I don't remember the exact date, June 24th, 2024 is what I think the date was, but don't quote me. And if you've been here for 10 years, then you could do what's called parole in place. But in that notice, it also talks about how there are certain people who may be eligible for employment-based options, for being able to fix your status without leaving through employment-based options. We will know more about what this entails as time goes on, but there are options available through employment visas and through employment green cards that may be available to you. You would have to talk to an immigration lawyer about that. And I will say that we at New Frontier do not offer employment-based immigration options. But if you're interested in pursuing that, because let's say you don't qualify for a U visa, T visa, SIJS isn't an option, Asylum is not an option, and you don't have any kids who are over the age of 21, so what can we do? Then the next thing I would suggest is let's send you over to an employment immigration lawyer, because maybe they've got some tricks up their sleeve to be able to help you as well. Now, about DACA, I'm going to kind of conclude with this note. DACA is on hold right now, but maybe it won't be forever. I really believe that DACA is perhaps one of the most important next steps for our country to take, and actually making it go from being an executive order, which is what President Obama created and has really been stalled out through the Trump and Biden administrations, is we need to create law around this. And my hope is that within the next legislative period, we go from DACA being totally stuck to actually making DACA law, not just an immigration executive order from a president that changes and comes and goes. But for right now, if you have DACA, please, please, please maintain your DACA. Renew it early and often. Do not get into any immigration, or I should say, do not get into any criminal issues. Because if you lose your DACA, you are going to have so many problems, including very likely removal proceedings, and it's so hard to stop that machine once it starts. Navigating the immigration system is challenging, my friends, but you don't have to do it alone. Seeking the guidance of an experienced immigration lawyer can help make a significant difference in understanding your options, taking the right steps towards securing your future in the U.S. Do it for you. And I really want to help you do it without having to have anyone else do it. You have gotten this far in your life all on your own because you are an incredibly resilient human. So please, I would love to have the honor of being able to help you in the next part of your journey. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Immigration Law Made Easy. If you have any questions or want personalized assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at my office at New Frontier Immigration Law. Remember, every situation is unique and the right solution for you is out there. I believe that there is a solution to every problem. Stay full of hope, stay resilient, and until next time, I'll see you soon.